Have you ever considered how to age with dignity while preserving your independence? In today's video, we share the inspiring story of Grandpa Juan, a 70-year-old man who discovered a unique way to live comfortably without relying on a nursing home. His experience highlights the challenges many older adults face, from family dependency to the exhausting demands of daily routines. Through his connection with a young couple, we see how unexpected relationships can offer companionship and support, fostering a warm and welcoming environment. By the end of this video, you'll discover creative ideas to improve life in your later years, practical recommendations, and the power of emotional bonds. Don't miss it. This story could change your perspective on aging. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep the conversation going. Your support helps us continue sharing valuable insights. Part 1: Don Pedro's Story. At 70, Don Pedro often found himself reflecting deeply on the different ways of living he had experienced throughout his life. He had tried living with his children, relying on a caregiver, and even spending some time in a senior residence. However, each of these experiences left him with a sense of emptiness and a yearning for something more fulfilling in this final stage of his life. After a period of profound reflection and, by chance, he found a way of life that truly connected him with himself, offering the peace and independence he had longed for. He embraced this new path with enthusiasm, continuing on it to this day, which has brought him relief and satisfaction. This year, I turned 70 and remembered the moments leading up to my 75th birthday when I faced serious health challenges that eventually led me to leave this world behind. When my beloved wife was still by my side, I felt a deep sense of security. We made a mutual commitment to always support and care for each other, especially in times of illness. Our hospital visits, shared together, were always filled with laughter and camaraderie, transforming even the toughest moments into something we could face as a team. However, when my wife passed away, everything changed dramatically. Suddenly, even the thought of going to the hospital became an overwhelming burden, enveloping me in fear and anxiety. Over time, as my health deteriorated, I was forced to drag my weary body to the hospital, enduring endless waits that left me utterly exhausted. After each appointment, I would collapse into bed, completely drained, feeling like a shadow of my former self. Although I have a son and a daughter who love me dearly, both are deeply engrossed in the demands of their own lives. During my hospital visits, I decided not to ask them for help, as I couldn't bear the thought of being a burden to them. This attitude, born out of love and concern for their well-being, ironically created a situation where, despite my good intentions, my children ended up giving me more care than I had ever wanted. It was during an ordinary trip to the market that fate surprised me once again. I stumbled and fell, leading to an unexpected hospital stay. The doctor informed me that I would need at least 6 months to recover. Following this, my children suggested a plan, alternating between staying at my son's house and my daughter's, spending 3 months at each. However, during those stays, I couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in their lives. There is a saying that resonates deeply with me: a father's house will always be a home for his children, but a child's home will never be a home for their father. No matter how hard they tried to make me feel welcome, I felt the weight of that truth deep within me, longing to find a place where I truly belonged, a space that would give me the peace of feeling at home. In this new stage of his life, Grandpa Juan has found a refuge, a place where he can maintain his dignity while enjoying the independence he cherishes so much. It's not just a roof over his head, it's a renewed freedom that nourishes his soul, reminding him that even in the later years, it's still possible to build a life full of joy and meaningful connections. Spending the last few months in my children's homes has been an eye-opening experience, leaving a deep mark of loneliness on my heart. While I am grateful for their generosity and the fact that I have a place to live, I cannot help but feel that, no matter how welcoming or well-kept their homes are, they will never truly be mine. Every day, I try to convince myself that having a place to rest and eat should be enough, but the emotional disconnection I feel with my children constantly reminds me that something essential is missing. Every meal seems to be overshadowed by a sense of solitude as I find myself eating alone in my room while my children gather together, chatting and laughing in an atmosphere that feels increasingly foreign to me. Every moment at the table highlights the loneliness I feel, as if a new ache arrives with every bite. Their suggestion, said lightly, that I prepare my own meals feels more like a dismissal than a kind proposal. I cannot help but perceive their indifference. They see me as a figure from the past, a person burdened by age and, perhaps in their eyes, outdated and out of place in a world that moves forward so quickly. As I try to suppress these feelings, the tension in our conversations cuts deeper than any physical discomfort. I am aware that my thoughts may seem misplaced and that my words sometimes come out disjointed, but I cannot help but think about how different things were when they were young. Life seemed easier, filled with laughter and mutual understanding. Now, as I navigate the challenges of aging, I find myself struggling against their distant and cold attitudes, making me feel invisible in my own family. If these stories resonate with you and inspire you to take action, please comment 9. If not, please type 0. Your feedback is very important to us. Thank you for taking the time to read. After 6 long months living in my children's homes, I felt an overwhelming urge to return to my own home, a place that still holds the remnants of a life I once deeply cherished. It was in that moment that I truly understood the saying, "Not all that glitters is gold." My home, however small it may be, represents my memories, my history, and a desire to reclaim the independence I long for. Nevertheless, the recent injury to my leg serves as a painful reminder of my limitations, keeping me in constant discomfort and greatly restricting my mobility, leaving me acutely aware of my vulnerability. Living alone comes with its own set of exhausting challenges, the most pressing being the daily routine of grocery shopping. Every trip to the market feels like a monumental task, and when I finally return home, my legs burn with pain, and I'm drenched in cold sweat, a stark reflection of my fragility. This is not the life I had envisioned for myself at this stage. With great regret, I found it necessary to hire a caregiver, which proved to be a harsh blow to my already tight finances. The monthly salary of 800 yuan is difficult to manage, especially since my pension is barely sufficient. Often, I feel guilty for placing a financial burden on my children, relying on their limited support of just 110 yuan a month to afford this essential help. It is a clear reminder of how challenging it can be to face the hardships of aging when resources are scarce. While I wish I could enjoy nutritious meals that are more accessible in households with greater means, I've learned to embrace my principle: feeling satisfied is what matters most. I cannot justify splurging on food, especially when my tight budget imposes a different reality. This modest lifestyle has a direct impact on the retention of my caregiver. Families that can afford caregivers create comfortable and pleasant environments, with nutritious meals that nourish both body and spirit. Unfortunately, the caregivers who come to my home tend to leave after just a few days, unable to adapt to what they perceive as minimal portions. They often comment that the meals are like rabbit food, too small to provide the energy needed to handle such a demanding job. As if that weren't demoralizing enough, even the agencies providing caregivers are reluctant to send anyone to me, believing that the conditions here would not allow for lasting satisfaction. In the end, my heart is burdened by the realization that I may have to consider options I had tried to avoid. The need for continuous assistance at home makes me think about moving to a nursing home, an option that feels like another loss in a long chain of them. I long to experience a sense of connection and belonging, but the idea of asking my son for help with this transition pains me deeply. It is a painful acceptance of the distance that has grown between us, a stark reminder that aging often leads us to destinations we never wished to reach. The nursing home I visited, to be honest, was far from what one would expect of a comfortable and well-equipped place for the later years. While it was affordable, it was also in poor condition and lacked many amenities that could have improved the quality of life. Nevertheless, despite these shortcomings, it was within my pension's reach, which came as a great relief. After moving there, I found solace in knowing that my children would no longer have to bear the cost of a caregiver. Thinking about this gave me some comfort, knowing I was easing their financial burden, even just a little. I chose to stay there for the rest of my life, fully aware of the challenges they faced in their daily lives. I wanted to contribute in some way to easing their load. However, as an independent-spirited person, I found it difficult to adjust to the strict, almost military-like collective routine that governed the nursing home. At times, I felt suffocated, and although I tried to adapt, meeting the demands of the environment was a struggle. The days passed slowly, and after a month of feeling out of place and constrained, I decided to leave the nursing home. Returning home felt like breathing fresh air, and I resumed my life alone, which, in many ways, made me feel like I had regained my autonomy. Fortunately, just as I was beginning to settle back into my own space, an online grocery shopping service became available in my area. With this new option, I asked my daughter to place grocery orders online for me. Each day, the items could be picked up at a small shop located at the entrance of my residential complex, which was a true relief. There was no longer a need for long trips, and the sense of ease was palpable. My legs hurt less, allowing me to regain a bit of normalcy in my life. The young couple running the shop was extremely attentive. They noticed my mobility issues and were always willing to help, carrying my groceries to the elevator. Over time, as our interactions became more frequent, a genuine friendship developed between us. Their kindness and empathy brightened my days, and I cherished the moments we shared. This pleasant routine lasted for half a year, and while I felt at peace with my life, I couldn't stop reflecting on the reality so many people face. As I grew older, I began to notice how my physical strength gradually declined. This brought with it a troubling concern about the challenges associated with aging. I understood that, sooner or later, the time would come when living independently would no longer be possible, and the prospect of needing help from others to carry on was unsettling. One day, as I walked to the small shop to pick up my usual items, I came across a young couple arguing. I stopped silently nearby, feeling my heart sink as I listened to their conversation, which exposed the tensions caused by their financial struggles. The wife, visibly concerned for their child, fervently defended her decision to spend over €100 from their meager income to buy durian for him. It was painful to witness her anguish. The husband, worried about their finances, stressed that they couldn't afford such luxuries, especially given how tight things were. The wife replied, pointing out that their son had been longing for this rare fruit for a long time and that indulging him occasionally wasn't an unnecessary expense. Still, he reminded her of the importance of managing resources wisely, questioning what they would do if they ran out of money and couldn't pay for the child's school fees. While being in that place, I was overwhelmed with deep empathy for them. Their conversation was a powerful reminder of the challenges so many families face, and it touched my own concerns about what lies ahead. The connection between our struggles felt implicit, highlighting the delicate balance between what we desire and what we need, between moments of happiness and the fight to move forward. As I listened to their story, a brilliant idea appeared in my mind, like a light illuminating a dark room. The thought was so clear and warm that I could barely contain my excitement. I decided to approach the young couple who had shown me so much kindness and support and presented them with a proposal I believed would benefit us all. I offered them €800 per month to come to my home daily to perform some basic tasks, doing the laundry, tidying up the place, and preparing 2 simple meals. I assured them that this arrangement, although involving daily work, wouldn't demand a significant amount of their time or effort. When I presented the proposal, I noticed a spark of uncertainty in their eyes, a mix of shyness and surprise. They hesitated, mentioning they saw no reason to accept money from someone they considered a friend. Witnessing their reluctance was emotional, but I insisted, emphasizing that I genuinely wanted to support them financially. After several gentle attempts to persuade them, they finally accepted. I noticed how their initial doubts gave way to acceptance, as if they understood that what I was offering was a genuine opportunity, an act of goodwill. In truth, giving them 200,000 yuan monthly represented only a small fraction of what it would cost to hire a caregiver or move to a senior living facility. This realization filled me with gratitude. It wasn't just a practical alternative but also a significant advantage for me, as it allowed me to maintain my independence while ensuring them a stable income. Every day, they took the time to come to my home, infusing vitality and energy into my space as they cooked and organized. Living alone often felt lonely, but their presence transformed my days into something more vibrant and fulfilling. The tasks were simple for them, and I found joy in the shared routine. Over the years, this young couple has become deeply integrated into my life. We have formed a bond that transcends the employer-employee relationship, evolving into a friendship that truly moves me. Their dedication and meticulous care have deeply impressed me. Despite how close we've become, at 80 years old, I never imagined I could experience such well-being and companionship without relying on external assistance or burdening my children. Knowing that I can enjoy my golden years in peace, without fearing loneliness or the stigma of living in a senior residence, fills me with immense happiness. The genuine support I receive for just €800 a month is not merely a transactional arrangement, it is a true source of joy that has transformed my life in ways I never imagined. I made a heartfelt commitment to the couple who have shown me so much generosity and empathy over the past years. If they continued to care for me with the same dedication, I would offer them an additional reward of €3,600. The young couple expressed immense gratitude, their eyes shone with astonishment and joy as they explained how much that amount meant to them. They mentioned that it could completely change their destiny, giving them the stability they had longed for. Their sincere words deeply touched my heart. They added that if they were fortunate enough to find more kind-hearted seniors, they would treat them with even greater care. This sentiment filled me with renewed warmth and hope. This positive arrangement brought me a new sense of stability in my golden years, as though the clouds of doubt began to disperse, letting the rays of the sun shine through. If these stories inspire you and encourage you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your opinion is greatly valued. Thank you for taking the time to share it. Part 2. In the next chapter of our story, we will explore the emotional journey of Don Jose, an 80-year-old man who has managed to overcome the challenges of his later years with dignity and well-being, despite the financial difficulties that arose after losing his independence. Numerous elderly individuals experience a profound fear of losing their independence, and understandably so. The prospect of relying on others for essential needs can feel overwhelmingly burdensome, as if one were losing the very essence of life itself. This struggle is particularly painful for people like Don Jose, who face financial hardships. For him, ensuring a peaceful life in his retirement years is not merely a wish but a terrifying burden that constantly weighs on him. Allow me to share a bit about myself. My name is Don Jose, and today I proudly celebrate my 80th birthday. 3 years ago, my beloved wife departed this world after a long and exhausting battle with illness. Since that sorrowful moment, I have been facing life alone. Although I have a daughter, her path has been fraught with obstacles and complications. My son-in-law, whom I hoped would be a source of support, has proven to be quite unreliable. His low income and abusive attitude toward my daughter have tainted the family atmosphere, leaving me with a deep sense of helplessness. My daughter, now in her late 50s, has never truly experienced a day focused on her own well-being. Instead, she devotes herself tirelessly to her husband and son, her life confined to the repetitive cycles of work and caregiving. The love that once should have been her refuge has transformed into a source of suffering, as my son-in-law's cruel behavior prevents her from breaking free. It pains me deeply to see my daughter enduring the consequences of her husband's actions. Despite his many shortcomings, his manipulative abilities keep her trapped by his side. Whenever my son-in-law dares to mention his desire for a divorce, he resorts to violence to silence her, extinguishing any hope she might have of escaping. The aggression he inflicts stems from his terrifying awareness that, in our home, she is entirely unprotected. Apart from me, an elderly man no longer strong enough to intervene, there is no other man in our household to stand by her. This absence leaves my daughter vulnerable to his constant harassment because he knows he can act without fear of being stopped. My grandson, now a young adult in his early 20s, has been raised in an atmosphere of fear and hostility, tragically stifling his ability to protect his mother. Witnessing my daughter's suffering fills me with immense sorrow. She lacks the means to defend herself, and I feel utterly powerless to provide the support she so desperately needs. During my wife's life, we supported each other and faced life's challenges together. However, since her passing, the weight of life has become so heavy that I can no longer bear it alone. Last year, a severe stroke left me unable to move the right side of my body. After a long and arduous rehabilitation, I had to come to terms with the reality of paralysis. This truth enveloped me like a heavy fog, plunging me into countless moments of despair and anger at an unjust fate. I spent days crying, grappling with the overwhelming sense of unfairness in my situation. My dreams of independence faded further, leaving a void that seemed impossible to fill. Every tear was not only a lament for the abilities I had lost but also for the life I had envisioned for my family, a life filled with love, respect, and stability. In the midst of that fragility, I felt an urge to reclaim my role as someone who cares for, provides for, and stands as a pillar of strength for my daughter. I find myself in a challenging situation, one that deeply affects both my heart and my spirit. Reflecting on my life, I realize I have no children who can support me in my final years, nor do I have the financial resources to cover the costs of elderly care services that many of my peers rely on. My pension, a paltry amount of €250 per month, feels like a drop in the ocean as I face the harsh realities of aging. To make matters worse, my savings barely exceed €800, a sum that feels almost irrelevant in the face of ever-increasing expenses. With these limited resources, the idea of moving to a nursing home or hiring a caregiver at home seems entirely out of reach, an unattainable luxury. The emotional weight of my situation intensifies when I recall the day I was discharged from the hospital. It was my grandson who came to pick me up, a figure of comfort amidst the chaos of my health struggles. However, my daughter is also facing her own battle. She feels overwhelmed by the constant pressure from her husband and cannot ask for help, which leaves me feeling lonelier than ever. Although she is already retired, the responsibilities around her only continue to grow. She is trapped in a routine of cooking meals and taking care of her husband, which deprives her of the freedom to fully enjoy her life. At first, when I returned home, I relied on delivery services for my meals. As I navigated this new stage with some uncertainty, I felt a mix of gratitude and frustration while my grandson placed online orders for me, as I struggled with technology. Each time, I transferred him €8, and when I ran out of money, I timidly asked him to place another order. To make deliveries easier, I left the front door open, allowing the delivery person to come in effortlessly and hand me the meals, which became a true relief for me. My grandson used to visit occasionally to help with small tasks, like emptying the bathroom, assisting with bathing, or taking out the trash. However, over time, I began to notice his growing frustration. His words hurt me when he mentioned that he barely had any time for himself and feared his girlfriend might leave him if she found out how he felt about the burden I represented. It was a painful moment, but deep down, I knew he was right. I understood that asking him to keep taking care of me indefinitely wasn't a sustainable solution. He has his own life, filled with dates and dreams of starting a family. I never wanted to be an obstacle for him, and it hurt deeply to think that my needs were affecting his well-being and happiness. The harsh truth is that older adults like me often face significant challenges in affording the high costs of the services we need as we age. Without adequate financial support, the price of senior living facilities starts at least €400, an amount my limited pension doesn't even come close to covering. Hiring an in-home caregiver is even more expensive, making this option entirely out of reach. After many sleepless nights reflecting on my options, I finally found a possible solution, an approach that seemed to fit perfectly with my needs without straining my scarce resources. Discovering this method brought me a profound sense of relief, granting me a peace and security I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in years, I could sleep soundly, my worries eased, as I began to envision a more hopeful future. The next day, the much-anticipated weekend finally arrived, a time that promised rest and relief from the daily grind. As the soft morning light filtered through the curtains, something stirred in my chest, a desire to reach out to my grandson. Without hesitation, I picked up the phone and called him. My voice, full of emotion, asked him to come over as soon as possible. Convinced that our conversation would be crucial and transformative, he hesitated for a moment, mentioning that he had urgent matters to attend to. However, the intensity in my voice motivated him to hurry, which gave me a sense of relief. When he arrived, I invited him to sit by my bed, a place that felt like the ideal setting for the profound conversation we were about to have. With my heart racing, I presented him with two options, the weight of the decision heavy on my mind. The first option was to sell our house, the home filled with memories and affection, and use the money to move into a senior living facility where I would spend my final years in a place lacking the warmth of family. Just thinking about that lonely life chilled my heart. The second option, on the other hand, sparked a glimmer of hope, transferring ownership of the house to him. In return, I asked him to commit to living with me, perhaps getting married and even starting a family under the same roof. I shared my modest savings of €800, which could contribute to household expenses. My desire to live together didn't stem from a need for care but from a deeper understanding of the challenges we both faced. I realized it was unrealistic to expect a young person in their 20s to take on the responsibility of caring for an elderly person struggling to maintain independence. It's often said that even biological children can feel overwhelmed by the task of caring for aging parents until the end of their days. Imagine how much harder it would be for a grandson from a different generation. The weight of that realization settled heavily on my heart. To lighten the load, I considered hiring a part-time assistant to handle the more demanding tasks, such as cooking and doing laundry, simple but essential chores that could be managed for an affordable cost of €140 a month. My pension of €250 would be enough to cover these expenses without difficulty. What comforted me most about living with my grandson, I thought, was the occasional support he could offer me, helping me maintain my dignity when I felt vulnerable. For someone like me, who could no longer live completely independently, the idea of being home alone without assistance in case of an emergency was a profound fear. To my great happiness, my grandson embraced the idea enthusiastically. He said that living with me would be a real relief, as he often struggled with his father's strong personality. His attitude filled me with tenderness and strengthened my confidence that this decision would bring joy and well-being to our lives. Furthermore, I felt reassured knowing that my home was spacious enough to accommodate a growing family, with room to spare, even if he got married and started his own family. The next day, my grandson returned with a caregiver he had found through an agency, and I felt at ease knowing I would pay her a monthly salary of €150. Her workday would begin every morning at 9 a.m., during which she would clean the house, do my laundry, and cook lunch before leaving in the afternoon. In the evenings, I would take care of preparing dinner and tidying up, ensuring my home remained a haven of warmth and care. With this new arrangement, I experienced a deep sense of tranquility, knowing I could rely on my grandson and the caregiver to create an environment where love and support flourished, enriching our lives in this beautiful chapter we were beginning together. I have been giving the caregiver €60 a month for groceries, ensuring that any surplus or shortfall is managed separately. This system has worked very well for me. In fact, the caregiver often returns a few euros at the end of each month since I usually eat only 2 meals a day and have never been a fan of meat or heavy side dishes. With my simple eating habits, €70 have been more than sufficient to cover my needs. Nowadays, I have the fortune of sharing my home with my grandson, which brings a great deal of warmth and happiness to my daily routine. As we have gradually improved the house, it has become a much more welcoming place for everyone. What fills me with immense joy is seeing the harmonious relationship the caregiver has with my grandchildren. This has strengthened the sense of family unity that I deeply value. It brings me great satisfaction to observe how our connections have grown stronger, creating an environment full of love and mutual support. I am truly happy and at peace with the lifestyle I have built, the result of careful planning. I am living a peaceful old age with reduced expenses. The best part is that I can save more than 60% of my monthly pension. This sense of economic stability is truly comforting. I am convinced that older adults, even those without a strong financial foundation, can find ways to organize their lives to meet their needs, as long as they strive to seek alternatives. Every elderly person has the right to enjoy a comfortable life and face their final stage with serenity and without pain. Human nature has a pragmatic, and at times, selfish side. It is sad to see how even the strongest bonds, such as those between siblings, can be fractured by life's pressures. This truth underscores the importance of having support networks, especially for the elderly, to prevent unnecessary suffering and complications. Despite the love of one's children, it is crucial for older adults to have an emergency fund. The importance of this fund cannot be overstated. Even a modest sum can provide relief during tough times, offering a sense of stability when everything else seems out of control. There comes a point in life when the importance of financial backing becomes impossible to ignore. At times, a simple bank transfer is enough to resolve multiple inconveniences, reducing stress and worries. While we long to receive unconditional love and dedication from our children, we must also recognize the challenges they face. Demanding from them without considering their own struggles can lead to tensions and feelings of resentment. At the end of the day, life is about evolution and learning. No matter how old we are or how self-sufficient we may be, maintaining an optimistic attitude and seeking peace of mind allows us to be the best version of ourselves. Each day brings new opportunities to grow, build relationships, and enjoy happiness, even in our most mature stages. I am grateful to have you join me on this journey of reflection as we explore the value of financial planning, family relationships, and the right to enjoy our years with well-being. As we wrap up, I invite you to reflect on the lessons we've shared today. What impacted you the most? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please feel free to share your most meaningful reflection in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, we would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a comment, give it a like, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Your support is essential for us to continue offering content that can truly make a positive impact on people's lives. Thank you for being part of our community.